Here's Shed. Off the window, no. Roberts tried to get it. Shed for the win. Got it. Jamal Shed plays the hero again.
Back to pass. Donovan Smith. Smith steps up in the pocket, unloads it, throws it all the way downfield into the end zone. Tipped, and it is caught. Caught by the Cougars. Caught for a touchdown. Unbelievable. Caught by Stephon Johnson.
Stick it in your pipe and smoke it, baby. Yes!
Welcome to the Scott Home Podcast, back here at the beginning of December with tons of Cougar sports to talk about. The Thanksgiving season is now fully passed through. Bobby and I, who respectively have done two time-honored Thanksgiving things. I did the traveling out of state for the extended Thanksgiving week. You did the working retail and the insanely busy Thanksgiving part of the year. We've both survived our various travails to come back to you to talk everything that's been happening in the world of Houston Cougar sports. Buddy, how you holding up?
Actually woke up this morning, kind of felt sick. I got a crazy life next week and everything. So this week, the rest of the week, all that, just woke up not feeling great though.
But woke up ready to talk Houston Cougar sports like we will be doing tonight. We've been doing a lot of that on our Patreon, patreon.com/SHPodcast, SHPAWD cast over there for as little as $5 a month, 16 cents a day, as I often say in here. You can support the work that Bobby and I do on a weekly basis. More than that, if you're able to, and a number of you do, we are continually humbled by the number of people who have financially supported our show in present time and over the years prior to this one. That's really cool. You're never getting more premium content than you do now. You got my premium BYU React. You're going to get in between when I'm talking here and by the time this drops, you will also be getting a premium summary episode of the Vegas week that was for Cougar men's basketball as part of that ongoing series, as well. Just finished the second straight season of doing instant reacts or semi-instant reacts, depending on how late into the early AM the Cougar game went. But tons of content over there, patreon.com/SHPodcast. Bonus stuff, and also just supporting the work that Bobby and I do over there. Trying to keep it tight here because we have a lot of Cougar stuff to talk about, including a story that dropped not 12 to 13 hours after we recorded this last episode. But I will note one more Patreon plug. Bobby did a solo react to that within less than 24 hours after the firing happened, because I had my podcast mic, but I was far from home, and was, I think, the most expedient thing to have Bobby do a fantastic reaction, which he did. Patrons got that early over at patreon.com/SHPodcast. So not the first time it's been discussed in this forum, but the first time it's been discussed with multiple co-hosts. Houston Cougar football made, I think, a much rejoiced change in dismissing previous offensive coordinator and tight ends coach Kevin Barbay, who was the OC for the first 11 games this season, replacing him on an interim basis with Sean Bell, previous year quarterbacks coach and pass game coordinator. Bobby, since you got to talk about it, I think I'll lead off here, but I will allow you to obviously give your thoughts on the firing, and maybe even we could, go. Obviously, we're going to talk about the football game that up next, the BYU game that was the conclusion of the football regular season. But necessary change. Like, you don't have to get any more complicated analysis wise than you were the worst scoring offense in the country in Division I FBS. The level that's really, it's a wide swath of schools. It's not like, oh, you're the worst Power 5. No. 134 teams sponsor Division I FBS football, including your Houston Cougars. And there was not a team that scored fewer points this season than the Houston Cougars. You could acknowledge that, yeah.
I was just going to say, think of every bad team you can think of. We scored less per game than them when this move was made.
So you can acknowledge that there's a ceiling on what Houston Cougar football's offense can do this year, maybe even more than you or I or anyone that thought about this team. Is kind of the simplistic, like, yeah, well, like, it's going to be more of a running offense. And you got your backs returning for the season, which wasn't nothing, though. One of them, Tony Mathis, never played a snap because he got hurt. And one of them, Parker Jenkins, largely didn't play this season after the first couple games. That's different, but and there's still talent in the position. That's not me bad-mouthing that, but I think maybe the surface level analysis that this offense was going to just, okay, like, it's going to be better for having a run-first offensive coordinator there and all that stuff. I mean, maybe would have been overly optimistic about Kevin Barbay's offensive chops, but also there's some fundamental things wrong here. I don't think you're a Kevin Barbay subtraction away from this becoming the 2011 Houston Cougar offense, or the 2022 or 2019 Tulane offense, believe it or not, will be coming up a little bit later here in this segment. But the ceiling was a whole hell of a lot higher than 13.6 points per game, which I believe was the number when Kevin Barbay got axed on Tuesday very early in the morning. Like that can't be acceptable. That always, you have to score points. Your job as an offensive coordinator is to score points. And personnel limits be damned, you should have scored a whole hell of a lot more under this OC than you did, and that's why he's no longer employed.
Yeah, I mean, you can try and make this as fancy as you want to, or try to do anything like that. Like, if you don't score, to be honest, the bottom scoring offense should be releasing and firing their offensive coordinator every year. Like, it doesn't matter. If you're the worst at it, you shouldn't have a job. That means you're the worst at your job when it comes to that. And it's not like it's one of those where we weren't scoring, but we had an efficient offense. We were like bottom 15 in SP Plus as well. So it's not like we were, having an offense that was moving the ball against good teams and things like that. And we just got, unlucky no. Every metric you looked at this offense, it was one of the worst 15 to 20 in the country.
Yeah, just no lipstick you could put on that pig. It was a very, very bad offense.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. And if you wanted to say, well, there could be extenuating circumstances for why an offense would be terrible, there were not nearly enough extenuating circumstances to justify employing Kevin Barbay 1 second longer. And not to get ahead of ourselves to the game, I think you saw in the BYU game that, again, like, there are limitations. There are things about this offense that even the best offensive coordinator couldn't be getting 35, 40 points out of this unit if they were magically transported into the offensive coordinator chair. But you saw a different voice immediately make the offense look a little bit better. Yep. Make it look like it made a little bit more sense than most of what we saw the previous 11 games. I mean, you got shut out twice by Cincinnati and Iowa State. You got spiritually shut out by UNLV. You scored 7, but it was at the very end against basically every bench guy at UNLV wanted to get reps before leaving back to Vegas. And you didn't score an offensive touchdown in maybe the two worst Big 12 defensive matchups that you got this year in Arizona and Baylor. Like, Baylor's a good team. We talked about that a lot in the recap. Baylor's a good team. Baylor's not a good defense. Baylor is one of the worst defenses in this league. Baylor had this strong finish this season by being an incredible offense, which your incredible defense actually did a good job against, but that you couldn't manage a touchdown from your offense in 8 quarters against those opponents should have been tarmacked after Arizona. Not saying it was a big black mark against Willie Fritz that he didn't make that change, but boy, that is a what if. Our friend Bill brought this up, and it's been bouncing in my head. One of those like very small what ifs, like what if you make this change before Baylor? Maybe you win that game, maybe you don't. And it's not really consequential that he got one more game tryout, but just an excusably bad offense. Like Kevin Barbay, we have coordinators, you and I, that's always going to be like, Mark D'Onofrio, God bless you, buddy, but I'm always going to remember you for that awful 2018 defense. Like, that's just always good. Doug Belk, even though he had a good defense, I'm also going to always associate Doug Belk with the 22 and 23 defenses being absolute dog water. And unfortunately, Kevin Barbay, you have entered the bad place in the minds of all of Houston Cougar fandom.
Yeah, absolutely. It just, there's, as I said on kind of the premium pod, it's just, there's no reason why you should be shocked that this move was made or upset that this move was made. It just, I did find it a little weird, the timing, as you kind of brought up. Like, I know signing day's in 3 days, so I get wanting to get it done early. But I don't know, it just felt weird to just give them the last game of the year. To not give them the last game of the year, not that it would have. I guess I'm kind of going in circles here. I guess
might just be honestly just tell the guy like, hey, like if you're looking for an analyst gig or you're thinking about just taking next year off, here you go. Have Thanksgiving. Have Thanksgiving with your family. Honestly, mercy killing, not to be like glib, but
that's a great way to put it. Just like I said, that was the only thing that felt weird about it. But when I say weird, I don't mean bad. It just was a little.
It was odd timing.
Oh, huh. Okay, that's kind of that's different to get him out of there with a game left. But But yeah, I don't think there was anything wrong with it or anything like that. To your point, it very well could have been if you want to start looking now, you can start putting your name out in places. So if they do get rid of their coach, you can make your way in. So I get it.
Agreed. Can I pitch you on someone who I think will be the best fit for this job? You know who I'm going to pitch you on, but can I pitch you for the sake of our listeners? Will Hall. Will Hall was recent. I'm gonna say, like, give you kind of the auspicious recent developments of Mr. Hall's career. Will Hall was the head coach of Southern Miss from 2021 through this season, and was through this season, past tense, he was fired when they were 1-6 this year. I think they finished on a 5-game losing streak. Didn't go great for Will Hall as head coach of Southern Miss. And I think 14-30 was the record he finished with. Do think that there's something to to be said about, hey, there might be some things that are making it harder to win at Southern Miss now than they were when back in the day when they were another Conference USA school, and they were generally like not as ever resourced as U of H, but kind of with us as one of the better teams football wise, at least in that league. It's been a lot harder to sustain that, but not even really defend his head coaching. Right, it didn't do great as head coach there, but his gig prior to being the head coach of Southern Miss for the last 3.5-ish years was he spent 2 years, the 2019 and 20 seasons, as the offensive coordinator at Tulane under current head coach of the Cougars, Willie Fritz, and was just wildly successful in his 2 years there. Runs a very creative run-first scheme. Did a lot of gadget stuff. If you recall the fake spike, and I'm sure if you recall it, you don't want to recall it, but the fake spike walk-off win by Tulane in 2019, in addition to a game where Tulane just ran the heck all over us. Like that was not just one good gadget play. Tulane beat our butts in that game, ran for a bazillion yards. I think it had a slow start, but ended up really moving the ball on us like crazy. Had in his 2 seasons at Tulane, 2 of their top 5 scoring offenses ever. And in that second season, I think very notably, did a great job tailoring something around true freshman Michael Pratt, who ended up being a very good quarterback there. Did a very good job making that scheme palatable to a young quarterback and still producing a very explosive offense. He's a guy who I think checks all the boxes of what Willie Fritz wants to do scheme-wise, has worked with him before, had a good relationship with him, didn't leave with any animosity. Interesting background, too. I think less relevant, but was a small college head coach at West Alabama and West Georgia, was a very, very good small college quarterback at like the beginning of the 21st century as well, so still a fairly young guy. The guy's a creative offensive mind who has a run-first offense, who's put up points most everywhere he's been. Was also on Mike Norvell's staff at Memphis as well. I think the only missing piece there would be hasn't really coached in Texas that much, but I'm sorry, like let's get some points. Let's get somebody who could score fucking points. I don't care if they're from Houston, Texas, or from Mars. I just want someone who knows how to score points here, and I think Will Hall's that guy. I think he won't be like there are like Brendan Marion at UNLV, great resume. I think we are priced out of what Brendan Marion wants to do. Either I think he's got to follow Barry Odom to whatever his next job is, or Oklahoma, or some other program that has offensive problems that can just pay an S ton of money. And I don't think Will Hall's necessarily going to get that job's attention. So that's my pitch to you for Will Hall for the next Cougar OC. It's not based on any inside knowledge. It's not based on me saying, I think it's going to happen, though I think it wouldn't be unrealistic for it to happen. That's my number one with a bullet choice to fill this position.
Yeah, I think you kind of sold me on him when we were talking about it, and you sent me kind of your short list of who you were thinking. And that one kind of makes sense to me. It really does. I go, yeah, I can see that. One that I'd be interested in is a name of Slade Nagel. Fritz wanted him here initially. For some reason decided to go to LSU and be their tight ends coach. So I wouldn't
watch some tape of Donovan Smith. It was just like, I don't know, buddy. I'm kidding. I don't know if that's the case. Sorry.
Yeah, no. And so, another good name that I kind of like is Mac Leftwich over at Texas State. You said get somebody who knows how to score points. Texas State does a pretty good job of scoring points. You kind of look at their point totals this year. 34, 49, 28, 39, 38, 41, 14, 17, 38, 58, 44, 45. Those are kind of numbers that you like to see. Now, granted, it's in the Sun Belt, but I will I'll take that level of production out of an offense pretty much any time. And then you kind of look, he's already in Texas. I don't know all of his background. Is he a
here's
Texas
what's
guy?
crazy. Finish it up. I've got. Did you finish up what you were saying? It's a funny little anecdote because I looked up a little bit about him too.
Yeah. I'm trying to see where he's been in Texas. It seems his whole career. Played at UTEP.
I was gonna say he played for UTEP.
Yeah, played at UTEP. Was at Incarnate Word. Moved up to Texas State. One of the things I mentioned in the premium episode is how I like to see the progression of a coach. Right. You look at Leftwich. 2018, he goes to the Incarnate Word. He's a GA. Then in the next year, 2019 to 2021, he becomes their quarterbacks coach, becomes their OC and quarterbacks coach, gets promoted and steps up a level to Texas State in 2023, becoming their offensive coordinator there. So kind of like that. A name who he's worked with. He's from Denton, played at UTEP, a Texas guy, could have some nice inroads there.
Yeah, I like Leftwich a lot. Yeah, he would definitely be in my secondary group behind Will Hall. Very, very committed to him, but I don't have any real fundamental critiques of Leftwich. I guess maybe does the up-tempo, spready thing that they run at Texas State, which is very good. Like, I have no actual fundamental critique of their offense. Like, Texas State's maybe underachieved a bit. They kind of thought they might be a Sun Belt contender this year. That's not really been an offense problem. The offense isn't perfect, but that really has been more of a defensive problem for them this year. Their offense has scored points, and there's not really any good critique. If your critique's like, well, you didn't do it at the Power 5 level, it's like, yeah, Kevin Barbay was a Power 5 offensive coordinator. Like, that, how'd that fucking work out for you?
Yeah. So can I throw two names out at you?
Hit me.
All right. Two names. Number one, Rich Rod.
I mean, he's not coming. He's not. I mean, I know Jacksonville State isn't a great. Like, I think he wants to be his own boss. He was an Ole Miss offensive coordinator, and that didn't go amazing. And I think he wants to be the boss. Like, I don't think he wants to. There might be an OC job. There might be like a big money program that can pay him like an absurd salary to like, okay, go back and be in the booth and call plays like that. I think he's happy being a head coach, even at a smaller level like Jack State, though. I love the offense, man. No.
Love the offense. It fits the personnel. That'd be it. I wonder if Coach Fritz is at least just called an agent and just been like, do I even have a shot? Does he want to do at least an interview?
Yeah.
I'd be curious if that call has happened. And then we're gonna take a big deep breath before I say the next one.
I won't interrupt.
Tom Herman.
Very funny. I do think he'll be. I think he'll be a power P4 offensive coordinator somewhere. You know, my absolute crank theory on that is not Cougars, so I won't waste too much time on it.
Yep.
I think Ohio State gets Urban back there.
You think they're gonna fire?
I think they'll fire Day. Oh yeah, they'll fire. Dude, he's lost the last 4 to Michigan.
Dude, what if
he lost to the shittiest Michigan team?
But he's gonna go to the playoff. What if he makes it to the semis?
It is less important, and I understand why. It is less important to them that he makes. They're not gonna fire him now. Like, they're gonna let him finish out the season, and there are scenarios that he keeps his job. If they go on a run in the playoff, that's kind of the cool thing about having the 12 team is that you didn't have this before. But if barring something like that, no, there's gonna be a mutual parting of ways. Like
you
losing
really
to this,
so?
Yes, I am as convinced of that as I'm. You like losing 4 straight to Michigan and then having the 4th one be this awful Michigan team. This Michigan team that has a walk-on at quarterback and can't complete a forward pass, and you lost to them in the Big House with the most expensive or one of the most expensive rosters in college football. And it was just he needed to go out there and beat that ass, and they went out there and lost, and got pissy about flags. Again, Coug podcast here, so we'll get it steered back in that lane. And I know it's weird generally for a coach who won double-digit games to get fired, but 4 straight to Michigan in that rivalry, no, that's not tenable. Like, if anything, they might like spin it as, oh, he's accepted, he's accepted the West Virginia job or some shit. Just throwing that out there as an open job. Not saying that's necessarily what's going to happen. Or he wants to take a year off, spend time with his family. He's giving an NFL OC or something like that. But no, I fully expect Ohio State to have a head coach that's not Ryan Day. The crank theory is that it's going to be Urban Meyer. They're like, you know what? Awful guy, but it worked here. He's won. Bring him back. And Tom will go back and be the offensive coordinator, which he was very good at. That was his job immediately prior to getting U of H. So that's my answer to that. Obviously, he's not going to be here. As one of our favorite writers and podcasters, Stephen Godfrey, says Tom Herman is an acquired taste, but I think that's a place where one of the few places where he has not burned all of his bridges yet. So
yeah, okay. Those were the two names I just kind of wanted to throw out there.
Oh yeah, I kind of thought Tom might be coming out. Our old buddy popping his head out from the first couple seasons of the show. Want to talk about the football game, bud?
Let's go.
Cougars ended the 2024 football season with a 30-18 loss to the BYU Cougars Saturday night. The last game to go final, actually. No, second to last, because you had New Mexico and Hawaii out on the islands. One of the last games to go final
Big 12 game of the season.
Final Big 12 regular season game of the year. Cougars lost it. I think a lot of encouraging things from it. Bobby, what are your early thoughts? And hit me with your 3 plays.
Man, we saw an offensive performance that was legitimate. I mean, you look at the final score and you go, okay, you got 18. Like, is it really that good? Compared to what this team has had all season, this was an amazing performance. I would take this performance. I think I texted you about halfway through the third quarter. I was in bed. I, again, had to work. And, but I watched the whole thing before you start going.
Real
he doesn't even watch. Yeah, right. I still stayed up and watched it, but I was in bed. I think I texted you. If you give me this offense, while it wasn't perfect, I think this team goes out, and if you give me this offense, I think we have a really good shot at winning Baylor. I think this offense does well against Arizona as well. Obviously, we saw it versus BYU. Not that BYU had this, like,
BYU was a good defense. BYU was one of the better defenses.
What, like top 30, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the better defenses we're going to see this season.
And you put up 2 touchdowns. Shit, I'll take that all day, every day. So, I think BYU's defense is better than Baylor's. I think it's better than Arizona's. And so there's a lot of good in this game. And I know you and I differ on you grading on a curve versus I don't always grade on a curve. I'm like, no, objectively it's bad. But looking at this in a curve, this is one of our better offensive performances we've put up this year, even in some of the wins. I mean, you go back and you kind of look at the schedule. You had a better offensive performance TCU. I don't know if the offensive performance versus Kansas State was better than what we saw versus BYU.
Yeah, I'd actually say BYU is better. I'd agree.
Yeah. And it's one of the most underwhelming, kind of stat lines, though. You kind of look at the offense in the box score and you go, 16 of 24 from Zion. Okay. No touchdowns and interception. Don't feel great about that. Rushing 2.7 per carry. You have 36 for 97.
I talked to this on the premium recap. The number is at least somewhat like skewed because that dumbass college rule that the Zion Christopher where he lost almost 50 yards. So it still wasn't great with it, point. But I wanted to put that to you because I did the same thing on the premium show.
But you kind of look at it and you go, I mean, it was fine. Zion Chris 2 rushing touchdowns, which you love, all came close. The thing that got me the most excited, though, was we saw sustained drives. We saw drives that finished, number one, and number two, we saw drives that didn't rely on a big play or something like that. I mean, that first scoring drive, you go 10 plays, 80 yards, and take up 5.5 minutes. It's beautiful. You can't ask for much more than that. So that was kind of my initial thoughts. And then from there, I'll kind of jump into my 3 plays, if that is all right with you, unless you have more general thoughts before we go into specifics. 3 plays. The first one is going to be after the Cougars' first touchdown. There was a BYU unsportsmanlike conduct call. It's very rare that an overlooked play will turn into is on a PAT, but the unsportsmanlike conduct on BYU moves the ball out to the 50. The Cougs do something that I agree with. We can have a discussion about that later. I agree with going for the onside kick there. I love the call. Didn't work out, right? So you can talk, a lot of us will talk about the onside kick, and you and I will probably talk about the onside kick. But if the unsportsmanlike conduct doesn't happen, you don't do that, right? You're not doing the onside kick there if the unsportsmanlike conduct doesn't happen. So do you maybe save 7? Does BYU go down and score? Also, that unsportsmanlike conduct immediately puts the U of H offense back on the field. You have the excitement, but you just ran 10 plays. 80 yards were on the field for 5.5 minutes, and then the Cougs get the ball immediately back and hold the ball for another 7 or 8 plays, end up with a field goal after that. So that kind of built in how this game was going. Cougs were up 7-0 before the onside kick. If he doesn't have the unsportsmanlike conduct, Cougs kick the ball deep. Maybe you have a BYU drive. Maybe you don't have the next drive. It just completely changes what the game looked like, in my opinion. So that one is a big play for me. A lot of people will point to the onside kick, but what led to the onside kick? That's the unsportsmanlike conduct play. My second overlooked play is with 30 seconds left in the first half, you get a BYU pass of 52 yards down to the 13, led to the touchdown for BYU on the next play. Quarterback keeper runs it in for 13 yards, gets the touchdown. Going into the half down 21-10 felt a whole lot different than going in 14-10. And then finally, with 5:36 left in the fourth, it is 3rd and 7. Zion Chris drops back, actually kind of throws it deep, about 15-20 yards deep, has the guy open, but Zion overthrew it. Weird throwing the ball there deep rather than trying to pick up 4 or 5 there and give yourself an easy 4th down. If you knew you were going to go for it there, why put yourself in the 4th and 7? That 4th and 7 ends up with that crazy ass fumble that we mentioned. Maybe a 4th and 2 or even a 4th and 4 just makes that a little bit easier, and you go down, score, win the game there. So those were kind of my 3 plays. That 3rd down I think gets overlooked because of what happened on 4th down. So Sam, what are your 3 plays, bud?
So I'm going to start with a type of play, my first one that both of us have kind of gone to in this segment over the season. This was the play immediately before the first touchdown of the game, the Zion Chris run on 1st and goal. This was a 3rd and 6 play, so manageable 3rd down, but not a gimme that this offense, as it presently constructed, could get those yardage, and part of a very satisfying touchdown drive. You were in 11 personnel. Rashawn Sanford lined up next to Zion Chris. Sanford gets the handoff, makes kind of a move like he's going to run through the middle of the line, then cuts outside, is able to get the edge, ultimately gets out of bounds, gets past the marker, set up a 1st and goal with 3 yards to go. I think that play should be a reminder that for all of this team's struggles this year offensively, that Rashawn Sanford's still going to be a really good one. He took some of the lumps that you'd expect a first-year guy to take playing that position at this level, but he's still going to be really, really good. I'm as confident about that now as I was several months ago before the season. My second play comes from a bit later in the first half. This was on the U of H's, I would say, true final possession of the first half. You got the ball with a few seconds left, but I don't think that really counts as a possession. This was a really nice opening play on this drive. Sorry, there was a nice opening play. This is not the play that I'm picking. There's a really nice opening play. Zion Chris keeps the ball, 11-yard gain for 1st down. You're just on the U of H side of the midfield. And at that point, I remember thinking, it really felt like U of H there was in a spot where if you could score, and then you're at midfield, so inherently you're starting to think like, okay, you have another drive like the earlier one. You could score at the very least, like use up the clock, go into halftime with a lead, even if you're not up, say, 13-7 or 17-7, even if you stalled out, that you could probably burn enough time to not give BYU another crack at scoring, and then go into the locker room with the lead, kind of take the air out of the stadium a bit, get the ball again to start the second half. Like, you're feeling really good about that. Really long-winded wind-up for my play or not play, I guess, to be David Ndukwe, your left tackle, committing an obvious false start to make it 1st and 15. Because really, Bobby, at that point, the drive stalls there. And not only can you only ended up getting back to the original line of scrimmage, you left BYU over a minute to work with, which still shouldn't have been enough time. And I don't want to absolve the defense. If there's any black mark on this defense from this game, which we'll get to when we talk about the defense specifically, it's BYU going 6 plays and 80 yards against you at the end of the first half. That wasn't good. That was just something that I hope any film review of this game, it talked about how poorly you did there. But also, ideally, your offense could have gotten at least one more first down and would have made all this moot point. It would have been a lot easier without the false start. So that was my second player, I guess, in this case, second non-play in lieu of one. My final play, we're going to fast forward a bit to the fourth quarter at the beginning of what would ultimately be U of H's final scoring drive of the game. This is the first play, a 6-yard completion from Zion Chris to his back, Stacey Sneed. Nice play, but probably not one of the first few you'd think of, which I think meets the criterion of this segment. From a game where I think by the low standards of this season's offense, you had some stretches of looking like you could really move the ball against a good defense. And I picked it because this offense, among its many, many problems, I don't think it had a bigger problem this year than staying on schedule. There's a reason why you were dead last in the Big 12 and one of the worst in the country at third down percentage. And just getting that 6-yard gain there, obviously bigger play, a play that would not meet the overlooked criterion, is the PI on Manjack down the field. That gives you a nice 15 yards. That keeps the ball moving. 15 yards is always going to be very, very good for any offense. But starting at 2nd and 4, not a coincidence that you were able to move the ball in this drive and actually get some stuff going by starting on schedule. And that's something I don't think things really bleed into other seasons year on year. But if anything this offense can be next year, it's just be better on first down, because you were terrible on it this year. And that was you starting well on first down. I wanted to single that out. A nice little play by Sneed there. And I think one of the things that you were effective in this game doing this kind of play was actually Sanford and Sneed getting involved out of the backfield in the passing game. I don't think you were ever able to really do it successfully under Barbay. I thought Bell did a better job as kind of a type of play you saw actually work really well. I think Sneed was your number 2 receiver behind Stephon Johnson for this game, but nice play there, and hopefully a wish for the new year that this offense stays on schedule a little bit more. Bobby, I was going to say, what were you going to say, bud?
No, I was just going to say, I absolutely agree. That was a big problem we had this year.
Yep. So that was 3 plays for 2024. Great segment, buddy. If you want to say it's your first idea as one of the co-hosts of this show, it was an absolute hit. We will 100% be doing that for the 2025 season, hopefully with more plays from winning football games, but not your purview.
Yeah, hopefully we don't have like 5 games again where we just kind of text each other and go, how are we going to find 3 plays that made a difference in this game? Yeah. They scored on their first 4 drives, and we didn't. So how are we going to make this interesting?
Yeah, Cincinnati and Arizona were pretty rough ones. I had to start getting liberal with definitions and what have you. So we'll start with the offense, and not that we're going to over praise 18 points. You still turned the ball over 4 times. I didn't want to interrupt your earlier thing to say it, but not everything was good in this one. Wouldn't put all that in scheme. I thought better ideas from Sean Bell. Sean Bell certainly proved why he should be on staff, and certainly I'd go as far as to say, like you said it to me, like co-OC title. I don't think that's unrealistic. Even if you want to give the other guy play calling duties, the guy clearly had a better idea of what to do with these players than his predecessor. Do you give him the job just based on that? I'm not so sure. Like, he hasn't been, I don't think he's been the play caller. He's had like coordinator titles, but I don't think he's been anyone's play caller yet at this level. I don't know if I want to do that just based on one game where you're like pretty good, but not like I think you have to do a whole lot better. Just be like, give him the job. Like, we dropped 40 on BYU and win this game. Yeah, you at least like entertain the idea. I don't know if you entertain the idea there, but a better effort, not a perfect effort. What do you think is worth talking about from the offense? An offensive segment that's not as negative as a lot of the ones we did this season. So I guess that's a nice little thing to end on.
Yeah, I think for me, the craziest stat of this is you kind of look at Zion Chris's numbers and you go 16 to 24. That's fine. 156, average of 6.5. QBR of 36.3. I thought he was better than that.
Turn. I don't know if fumbles factor in, but 3 turnovers is basura.
It's not great. It's not great. I think I sent you. I think we got a lot of good. I think the offensive line was pretty good in this game, and you can tell what a good offensive line can do for an offense. Not to say that they were perfect, but I thought we had a pretty good performance out of the offense. I mean, one of Zion Chris's fumbles was that 4th and 6 that resulted in like a loss of 50 or whatever it was. And you and I were having a discussion about this, and I went back and I watched it today. There are 3 linemen in his face at the snap. There are 2 offensive linemen standing around. There's one on his face. And like, I understand because, you were telling me last night, he fumbled it without being touched. Yes, but also I don't disagree with the fact that he probably could have eaten it and just kind of fallen on the ball. That's a guy trying to make a play. He didn't make the play late in the game.
What play was he trying to make when he dropped the ball?
He's trying to run away from 3 guys that were in his face immediately. And at least he rolled out to the receiver where you had 3 wideouts. At least he rolled out over there. Like he was trying something. I would have liked him to kind of tuck that and maybe try and beat those guys to the corner. But, when you see an offensive lineman on his face, you saw good offensive line play this game, and it made this offense look good. And you saw some terrible offensive line play, and that's when the offense looked bad. I hate breaking it down into that simple of terms. But if you are spending an NIL dollar on anything before you spend as much as you can on the offensive line, you have failed as a staff. I'm sorry. But I saw a couple of people on one of the social medias, I can't remember if it's B-Sky or if it's Twitter, that was like, we should spend, if we had $750,000 in NIL to spend, we should put $500,000 towards a quarterback and then try and do $250,000 towards the O-line. And I was like, 1, that's not going to get you anyone better than Zion Chris. 1. 2, flip it. The quarterback is not even close to what I think the biggest problem with this offense is. I think we did a good job in getting rid of the coordinator, the OC. That was partly it. And then now you have to shore up your offensive line.
I agree that offensive line is the bigger problem. I don't know if and also that I wouldn't spend the majority of what we have in terms of NIL war chest on quarterback versus O-line. Like, I fully agree with that. Offensive line is a higher priority there. I think you might be able to get someone in the portal better than Zion Chris. Not saying conclusively. He was truly awful this year at taking care of the football. I think one of the hopes, but not a certainty, but one of the hopes when you made the switch from Donovan Smith to Zion Chris is that he'd be a little bit better taking care of the ball. Not saying how realistic it is or isn't, but I hope that. And he was terrible at it. Terrible at it. In this game, I think generally, like the amount of that he threw like a number in the probably teens per pass. Like that was his average. Like I would say a good quarterback, this is a number I'm pulling out of the air, but probably like every 55 or 60 pass attempts, interception. That's like in the teens for the Cougar quarterbacks, including Zion Chris. Like some of that's this scheme. And I think the most likely thing that's going to happen here is that Zion Chris is going to be the guy with not a certainty, but at least sort of an inside track to start next year. I don't think the staff's going to basically tell him that, hey, like, we don't think you're a quarterback. I'm telling you, and thankfully Willie Fritz is making the decision, not me. Because Willie Fritz is a whole lot more qualified, has won a whole lot more college football games. Yours truly. I'm going to say what I said several weeks ago. If it was me making the decision, I would tell Zion Chris, like, thank you for this. You could, like, I'm not telling you to go find another program, but you're probably not going to be the starter here next year. I saw great ability as a runner this year. I would put him in the category of Greg Ward as a runner. That's how explosive a guy he was. I might say stick around. Like, he might just come out and have this great camp. Like, there's enough there that I'm at least intrigued. I wouldn't say it's 100%, but I don't know if I'd love the idea of Zion Chris having the inside track to win the job next year, because I don't know if I saw enough. I think a better scheme would improve that, and I think the offensive line improving is so much more important than the quarterback talk. Although the quarterback talk, I think that's the sexier thing to talk about. The offensive line has to get fixed too, but I don't know if I saw enough this year to really be excited about another year of Zion Christmas program. I'll probably get it, and I'm not going to bitch and moan about it all season, I promise, but that's my honest opinion to you, Bobby, and all the people listening, that I don't think he's good enough at this level. And I don't think decision-making or passing ability is going to ever get us where we need to be with him at quarterback.
Yeah, I laid it all out for you and why Zion Chris is the guy I think should be here next year. And it really boils down to what we have coming down the pipeline in terms of recruits and things like that. Do I think Zion Chris was great? No. Do I think Zion Chris, you could find someone better than Zion Chris in the portal? Maybe. The only person, I feel like if you're going to get somebody in the portal, they're either going to do what Zion Chris did, and they're going to want to sit out a year, or you're going to have to play them immediately.
Probably play immediately, probably.
That's what you would be looking for, is kind of my idea, is you're looking for somebody who would play immediately. You're getting a G5 guy, I think. Maybe somebody on at G5 quarterback, right? Or you are going to get lucky and you'll get a P4 guy who was a freshman this year or sophomore this year and is looking for PT. That's kind of what Zion Chris was, a G5 starter who looked pretty good, who probably could be a backup at the P5 level. So I also have to remember that, and I challenge everybody to remember that Zion Chris is still, I know he's a third-year sophomore, but he's still a sophomore. This was his sophomore year. He didn't expect to play this year. He came in, I mean, I don't know if he expected to play, right? You want to hope that every backup expects to play, but when he was brought in here, I don't think he was promised a starting spot. I think he was promised Donovan Smith is probably going to be our guy, but you can come in and compete, and if you beat him, great. I think this year was kind of a practice year. Now you're going to get a sophomore, first year in the system kind of deal. Do we want to go with another guy who's getting a first year in the system who may have been a starter at the G5 level? Like, that's just, I guess that's where I keep going back to. Look, I would love to bring somebody in better than Zion Chris, but it's like, I mentioned it last week. It's like I always tell Cowboy fans, right? They're always like, oh, we need someone better than Dak. And it's like, who? Like, Dak's a top 12 guy. It's not just easy to bring somebody in. It's easy to say, like, oh, we can bring somebody better in. We'll bring in a young guy. And it's like, that's not how that works, right? Like, Cleveland's been looking for a quarterback for 20 effing years. Like, if it was just easy to find quarterbacks, everyone would do it. And that's what always gives me the whole is like, what is going to be better? And I don't know, obviously we don't know who's in the portal, who's not, things like that. I just don't see us getting a proven guy at a P4 level. And we already got a guy who was good at the G5 level. He's playing for us. It'll be his second year in the system.
I mean, second year in the program, first year in a new offensive coordinator system. I think that's important here as well. Like, it'll be like, probably we'll have the same position coach. If I had to guess, Sean Bell will be back, at least in his current role, and maybe with
that's
the
a fair
OC
point.
title.
That'll
be a similar voice. OC. Yeah, but it'll be a different guy calling plays.
Yeah, no, you're right. I totally didn't even put that in and together just while we're talking here. But yeah, that's always just my concern, is who are you bringing in that's better?
Yeah, that's fair. And that's why I think I've come to the piece of, I think he's going to be the starting quarterback. And I think he'll probably have like a certain track to win the job in 2025, but inside track. Just saying how I feel after this game and how I feel now after watching a little over half a season of him starting games. Like, there's some very exciting stuff there. Very exciting stuff. And this game was a good example of it. Like, two fumbles. Yes, the production was very bad on the first fumble. You got to eat it there. Like, it's not your fault there are 4 offensive linemen in your face. You got to eat it there. Like, you got to be smarter than that. Like, you got to not put yourself in a position where, you're this really good, very hard-hitting defense is knocking the ball out of your hands and then getting it 30 yards downfield and now somehow finding a way one last time for this offense to fucking put this defense in a bad position. And then and maybe something's physically not right with him. I don't think we know that for sure, especially now the season's over. You don't have to really disclose injuries as transparently. And who knows, man? Like, we're recording this on Sunday night. There's a chance, like, Monday morning, Willie Fritz has his final media availability. He's like, oh, yeah, like, he had some kind of, like, shoulder thing. Like, okay, well, that's why he was coughing the ball.
Duarte actually tweeted that out before the game. Let me find his tweet. You keep going.
They had some kind of injury thing.
Yeah, that he was feeling better in this week than he had all season. I'll find it. You just keep talking your thoughts on Zion Chris.
Yeah, so some of that, the previous stuff might be that as well, like him playing hurt. Like, obviously a tough guy, like a guy teammates seem to respect. Like, I have nothing against Zion the kid, and there's some good stuff there, and maybe a better offensive coordinator. I hope in 12 months, I'm meaning these words, I hope in 12 months we see a demonstrably better Zion Chris, and periodically you're ribbing me like, hey, remember when you wanted us to basically tell Zion Chris to hit the bricks? I hope that's what's happening in 12 months. Really do. And I'm not basing it totally on this game where he had 3 turnovers. I'm basing it on the body of work. There's some good stuff in this game. What's up?
Yeah, so here's the Duarte tweet. Houston quarterback Zion Chris has been dealing with shoulder, knee, and hamstring injuries the last few weeks. Chris looked as good and healthy in practice this week as he has in some time, according to a source.
Good. Great. I want to see better decision making, and I expect he'll be on this roster, but I don't know. Maybe in 24 hours we have like
Jackson Arnold has hit the transfer portal and has decided to
Zion Chris. Like, you just never know. Like, it always can surprise these things. So
yeah, absolutely.
But if I had to guess, going this offseason, still with the program and with, I think, the inside track but not certainty to start, really liked what we saw. And I've liked what we've seen all season from Stephon Johnson. Like, one of those guys where the numbers will just never convey how much better he was this year versus last year. You look at the side-by-side, like, better numbers this year, but you see, like, if you just look at the year-on-year, you're like, well, it's a slight improvement. And that doesn't factor in that the passing offense was so much worse this year, and he still put up pretty decent numbers. This year, he still, the times he got the ball in open space, still made things happen for you. A season where not very many guys made things happen for you. It had some really good ones in this game, too. And just wish among many wishes about this season that Stephon Johnson, who looks demonstrably better. If you talk about NIL things, man, keeping around Stephon Johnson, that's a big one. Like, to me,
huge.
I don't think any other receiver really stood out, and maybe some of that's just the fact that the quarterbacks throwing to them weren't very good at throwing them the ball, that the scheme was pretty lousy. But there's not and Joseph and Manjack probably falls in this category too. But even him, it's almost like if he leaves, it's kind of like, okay, like, I get it, buddy. I appreciate your 3 years here. Appreciate you sticking around. Don't. I'm not unaware of why you're making this decision.
Yeah.
But any receivers besides Johnson and Manjack want to hit the portal, I mean, good luck to you. Didn't really see anything from anyone else this year that would make me too worried about. But Stephon Johnson, keep that guy around the running back room. Like, your trio of freshmen, Sanford, Jamarian Burnett, and DJ Butler had a nice run. Didn't really carry it that much, but had a nice run on that first touchdown drive. Those guys I think are worth building around. Like this, if Zion Chris figures out some things passing wise, you get a better scheme, and obviously get some offensive line help. I think that quartet, like the trio of running backs and Zion Chris, that could be a really salty rushing offense. But you gotta fix some pretty key inputs before you get there.
Absolutely.
Just you saw a lot of the things. Like, you saw a better, more thought out scheme from Sean Bell, but you also still saw some of the fundamental problems that, whether it's Sean Bell or Kevin Barbay or Jesus H. Christ calling plays for this team, it's there's still gonna be limitations there, and that's gotta be job number one. And this recruiting apparatus, Wes Fritz, you did a really good job on the defensive side of the ball, bringing in guys who became impact players. Offensive line is the hardest group to do it in. No pressure, but find us 3 to 5 better offensive linemen to start next year than the ones we have right now.
Yeah, that's got to be priority number one.
Cougar defensive performance. I I wouldn't call it. I wouldn't put it in the category of. And I think with retrospect, Cincy kind of is there now. That was a pretty bad one, seeing how they've kind of turned into this year. Kansas was bad. They're a good offense, but still a bad performance. I don't think this is one of this defense's better performances, but I also still think they gave you a chance to win, which I still think it's one of those hallmarks of this defense. There was some bad. I think on the whole, a lot of good possessions, like a lot of ones where they kept you in this game. Like this game was 24-18 because the Cougar defense did what they did. But also that 6-play 80-yard touchdown drive before halftime that BYU had, never not going to stick in my craw.
Killer.
What did you see from the defense that you think is worth talking about here?
You look at their quarterback, Jake Retzlaff. This was his lowest completion attempts, pass attempts, as well as completions, though. Completion percentage, his lowest on the season, behind the Utah game, which they barely won. I know it was cold, but it's not like it was this crazy game, something like that. 8 of 19 for 167. Love that from this. This defense there on a BYU offense that, on the whole was a pretty good offense. I think we can say that this BYU offense is a good offense. Don't love 39 carries for 189, 5 yards per, but if you're going to hold them passing, they're going to get it somewhere, right? This BYU offense is a good enough offense that, they're going to get their yards somewhere. We decided to tell them to beat us on the ground, and they kind of did. But overall, you got to the quarterback once. 3 tackles for losses. I thought the defense looked okay. Was it their best performance? I'd say no. Was it their worst performance? Absolutely not.
Yeah, fully agree. This was not your best performance, but as they often did this year, and that's I think the mark of a good defense, and that's why I really liked about this unit this year is that they consistently gave you a chance to win. Like, other than a game here and a game there, you could look at most of the games this season and you go line by line and be like, yeah, no, the defense kept you in that one. Like, was it perfect? No. But, like, they kept you in it. They gave you a chance to win.
That's all you can ask your defense to do. It's not the defense's fault the offense can't score. Just like you flip it, right? If you win 70-63, you're going, defense, can you just... Or you lose 70-63, you're going, defense... The offense did enough to keep us in it. Both sides have to do enough to keep you in it. But all you can ask for your defense is that they just keep it where you can score enough to win the game. And I think once this game got to 21-10 at the end of the first half, I was kind of like
17-10. Sorry.
17-10. Yeah. It was kind of like, I don't know about that. It's No, it was 21-10
at halftime. No, you're right. I'm looking at it.
It was 21-10 at halftime. I was like, that was one of my 3 plays, damn it. I remember. No. 21-10, when we fell down 2 scores to anybody this year, it was kind of like this game was fun.
Yeah, exactly.
I think if you go in 14-10, I think this game looks different, but that drive to end the first half was just atrocious. And we've seen that multiple times this year. Time winding down. It was a problem last year too. So I don't know what's
2 years
happening.
ago. You let UTSA and Texas Tech both do that to you at the beginning of that season. Kind of almost in the DNA of this program, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you're kind of going, okay, I'd really like to see something a little bit different out of this. And I don't know, that always feels like it's a play call issue, right? We're just playing conservative. We don't want to give up the 7. Well, you give up the 52-yarder and then a 13-yard run, and you're like, oh, well, we gave up the 7 anyways. D up.
It's easier said than done also. Like, you're kind of damned if you do. Like, if you get really aggressive and they burn you deep for a touchdown, you're like, well, why is he blitzing? I mean, you or I might be like, okay, well, I'd rather him be aggressive, but like, does it look stupidly aggressive if you get burned deep in a situation?
Yeah, if you blitz, if you bring 6 and you get beat deep or something like that.
Yeah, my only thing, it is a harder thing to do than the fans are like, oh, don't play prevent. Like, every fan loves saying that. Okay, well, what you have another plan is other than don't play prevent, and it can't be just like blitz, because that's probably as stupid as playing nothing but prevent and not rushing the opposing quarterback in a meaningful way. Like, it's easier said than done. But yeah, like, it was, and the Jake Retzlaff ran for 2 touchdowns against you. It's
That
not
hurts.
significant. That hurt, but just like that's not like just seeing that guy get as much yak as he did on that first touchdown run. AJ Halsey's had a great season. I'm not in any way impugning the season he's had, but AJ Halsey, not really. It was just like kind of throwing himself at Retzlaff. Not really a good tackle there in a situation where he really needed a good tackle there to get that first touchdown in the late stages of the first half.
Yeah, watching him get 13 on a run where this isn't to like take him down, but he's not somebody who I was like fearful that he was going to run all over us, and it kind of felt like he did. Whenever he wanted to, he could just pick up 4 or 5, and it was usually, like you said, yak, where we just weren't bringing him down for whatever reason.
Yeah, didn't have a lot of explosive runs in this. I mean, honestly, Retzlaff's runs might have been the most explosive against you. Like,
Yeah.
but they got that steady like 3 to 5 yards against you. And that's the mark of a really good running game, that you can not have an explosive game like BYU had in this one, but still move the ball, still do functional offensive things with your run game, like the Cougs with the U unfortunately did against us on Saturday night. Really, final game of the Cougar career for Michael Batten, for Jamal Morris, like Keith Cooper Jr. Like those are great cornerstone guys in this defense. Like in the case of Cooper, 1 year Cougar, Michael Batten 1 year Cougar as well, but always going to be guys I remember very positively. Like there are a number of good players coming back in this defense, but there are a number of guys who decided to spend their final college season here, or guys like Jamal Morris who stuck around with the Fritz staff and bought in and were part of a very good defense this year. Unbelievably appreciative, and God, just wish anything that we could find one more season of Michael Batten, find one more season of Keith Cooper Jr., the grave digger in this program, because as much as this game wasn't perfect, it was a nice bow on what was a good season for that unit. You kept this team in. So you can see the frustration boiling over at the end too, like the personal foul late after the BYU final touchdown. You can say it's just guys frustrated after a season of not being able to see your efforts truly get rewarded because your defense is paired with the worst scoring offense in college football.
You're absolutely right.
All right, buddy. You've been waiting for this one. An incredible come from behind win, Bobby. Our final week of Down with a Pickness. I went 0 for 3 in this one. Yours truly. I took the first half under, the game total of 41.5, and also unsuccessfully took the Cougar money line, lost 110 pod bucks on that. The only bet of not real money that matters this week is you do your Hail Mary of $500. And I'm sure you were sweating that final. I mean, I'm sure you weren't because it was 1 a.m. and you were in bed and probably weren't thinking about our weekly gambling segment. But $500 on U of H plus 13.5, which is a 12-point loss. Cougars narrowly, but still very much cover that number. Unsuccessfully, but not in any really significant way. Took the money line as well. You finished with just over 2,100 pod bucks.
Should I be a professional gambler?
No, you shouldn't. But both of us also turned incredible profits on the season. Yes, a good chunk of that was you making that final bet, but also you were in the black before that. So you were both positive
look,
the entire season.
And sometimes you're just so confident with the bet that you go for it. And, because nothing says confidence like betting lots of fake money on games and then taking your new offense. Because I made that pick before we changed our coordinators.
Yeah.
Before we changed our coordinators. So going in, it could have been what it was, or it could have been even worse. I just didn't know. So yeah, actually really happy that bet hit.
All right, bud.
So
tell me, you have not.
You ready to hear your punishment?
Yep. What's my punishment?
All right. So I had a couple of ideas. My first idea was I was going to pay for you and your partner to go and play 3 holes of golf and record it, and we were going to put it up. But then I decided not to, because I was going to pay for it. Like I was gonna take that on, and just so you had to record it, and we could all laugh at you. Okay, that would have been number 1. The second one I came up with was making you listen to and give a review of the I want to say 2002 NSYNC Celebrity album, which was their last album as a group. But I was like, is it really fair to make him do like 2 hours of listening to this plus writing a review of it? And it was going to have to be like one of like the good reviews like you would find in like Billboard or something like that.
I would have done. Look, buddy, I love writing. I love writing bullshit. So as much as I would have enjoyed the NSYNC Celebrity album, I would have done that.
So it was that, but the thing I ended up going with, it's an inspiration from one of my favorite videos on the internet. You have to do the Sprite challenge and film it.
The Sprite challenge?
That is where you have to chug a 20-ounce Sprite.
Oh, God.
And see if you can hold it down, or the burp that comes out from a lot of people. That's what you have to do. You have to chug a 20-ounce Sprite. Sounds easy.
No, it doesn't sound easy.
But there are lots of videos of people not able to do it.
Oh, man. This is... The last drink thing challenge I did, shout out to if my dad doesn't know about this. Me and some friends after school one day, it was junior. It was before lacrosse practice my junior year. We tried the gallon challenge.
Not good.
With
the milk?
With the milk, not good.
Yeah.
That's not a chugging thing. That's just you consume it over a certain amount of time. Got close to consuming the thing. Did not get close to not horribly throwing up afterwards.
This won't make you throw up.
Outside. No.
You can, okay. I will let you choose which one of the two you want.
I'm not going to do the gallon challenge.
No, not the gallon challenge. Sprite or listen to the entire NSYNC album.
I'm going to do the NSYNC album. What's my deadline for this?
Okay. I don't have a hard deadline. Why don't we say before you and I go to Arizona? That gives you 2 months.
I'll have it before the end of this calendar year. This is December 1st recording this calendar year.
Sounds good.
We'll do it. I'll even send you a written thing. I'm not going to read that on air because I'm not just going to read, but I will actually do a Billboard review, and then I'll do at the end of an episode like a 10, 15 minute like Cliff's Notes version of
it. I love it.
Kind of stuff. So that's pretty good. That is good. I thought you were going to make me play pickleball. I really thought.
Ooh, that would have been good. That would have been good. But you're already in the paddle space. You would have just had to be like.
But I hate pickleball. That's the point. Like
you do.
Yeah, that's or I have issues. I have issues with it that I'm not going to elaborate on for this episode. But I felt certain.
Man, I should have waited till the chicken and pickle opens in the pickle and chicken or whatever it's called opens in Vegas, and you had to go there and have a chicken sandwich and
play pickleball. Good stuff. Yeah,
dang it, that would have been good.
Yep. Sorry, NSYNC album it is.
All right.
Speaking of things that aren't going to make me very satisfied to talk about here at some point, though I think I would find more joy from the not so great week that Cougar men's basketball had in Vegas versus the 2002 NSYNC Celebrity album. Gotta talk about that. And I don't know if I want to I think I want to talk about, if you don't mind, Bobby, I'd like to talk about kind of as a whole. Like we could talk about various.
No, go ahead. I
don't want to do 20 minutes on Alabama, 20 minutes on Notre Dame, 20 minutes. One, because we're an hour into this thing. Two, because I think you got to talk about this thing in totality.
I agree.
And was everything bad? No. And I think I want to point out an important stat here before this. Not that it changes your win-loss record one iota, but Ken Pom. Algorithm by Ken Pomeroy, one of the best, the preeminent college basketball numbers guy. Bobby, now.
Just to kind of sum up Ken Pom, it's a metric that they use in the NCAA tournament selection.
Every Vegas and non-Vegas sports book uses there's a reason why the Ken Pom line and usually the betting line are very similar. And it's not because
they're 1 to 2 points when it opens.
Yeah, it's not because
Ken Pom is a thing. If you do any advanced analytics in college basketball, anything like that, it's based off Ken Pom.
Even if you just want to understand the game better, I think. Yep. It's digestible even if you don't want to get into exactly the how. Bobby, there are right now, because it changes year on year, 364 teams playing college basketball. Ken Pom has a luck metric. And I don't know every single number that goes into that, all that jazz. UH is the 358th luckiest team in the country right now, which feels right. It feels, as much as there are, you shouldn't have let San Diego hang around with you. Not going to go that far with Alabama. Alabama's a very good team, and that was a very close game. But it just doesn't feel like you can close right now. You had 3 games against varying degrees of good opponents. In Alabama and Auburn's case, I would say 2 of the best 10-ish teams in the country. I think Auburn right now, quick aside, I think Auburn should be the number one team in the country. They won't because Kansas hasn't lost yet. I think if Auburn and Kansas play right now, Auburn's winning that basketball game. Auburn's a damn good team. Alabama's a good team, not as good, but Alabama's still one of the best 10-ish in the country. So losing those teams necessarily isn't a shame, but it hurts because you felt like you had a chance to win both of them.
Yep.
Like, did Bama and Auburn deserve to win those games ultimately against you? Yes. But it hurts because you were up big on Auburn in the second half, the early part of the second half in that one. You were never up by as much on Bama, but there was a point, I think it was about 4 minutes left, you were up by 4. It really felt like when I was watching, I was like, you could step on their throat there. And you just never did. And then, I just want to get off the top. I don't blame any of the losses, past or present, on officiating. I do feel like we were robbed of a good matchup with Bama and U of H that turned into a free throw shooting contest.
I think that one more than the San Diego State game.
Oh yeah,
I think the San Diego State game. I think that last call on Sharp, not great, right? I think the guy fell.
Yeah,
but
you didn't. That's why you didn't win. You didn't lose because that call. You lost because you didn't.
You lost because you didn't score. You scored 5 points in the final 8 minutes of the game. That's why you lost. You didn't lose because of that call. That call didn't help.
No.
Right. That call was like the knife that goes in that puts you in a bad spot. But you lost that game because you didn't score. Like plain and simple.
Yep. Refs didn't put
sorry to kind of interrupt there.
No. You're good. Refs didn't put a lid over the basket there. That was
Exactly.
Unfortunately.
Exactly.
All you, like scored precious little points when you needed to. Again, we'll leave the ref stuff by saying that the next time we see Pat Adams on a crew for U of H will be too soon, and we'll spare the larger rant because we're already an hour into this thing, and I want Cougar men's basketball to be the focus. But I hate that there's certain celebrity refs where you're just like, oh my god, like, and I have to fucking read. And I usually love these journalists, but it's like I don't want to read Matt Norlander being like, oh yeah, like Pat Adams really likes to take control. No, call the foul. I don't want to know who the ref is. Like, and the thing that
it's like your long snapper.
Yeah,
if I know your name, I've done wrong.
Yeah, and I'm not saying U of H and Bama aren't physical teams that aren't going to probably generate more fouls than your average game. And I know it's like, oh, of course you liked the Notre Dame crew because you won that game. I liked that crew because there weren't any fouls watching that game when I was just like, come on, like just let them play. Like they let the basketball speak for itself. Unfortunately, the basketball at UH Notre Dame, at least offensively, was not the highest quality, but didn't feel like either of those teams had to win it from the free throw line. And Bama got Grant Nelson fouling up for overtime. Bama didn't get I think negatives from the officiating there as well. But anyway, I just wanted to get that out of my system and let the
No. I'm
basketball.
I'm writing down just to for your point here. The San Diego State game, 36 total fouls. Bama 55. Look,
there were not 55 fouls in that game.
There were not 55 fouls in that game. And I'm not even going to point at the Sharp one that it...
Shit call, though. Shit call.
Oh, yeah, terrible call. And then you can say what you want to in overtime where they just swallowed their whistles and they didn't do anything there. And we were probably hacked 3 times. We still only scored 2 points in overtime, guys.
And what kind of kills, you kind of knew that was going to happen once you knew Milos Uzan wasn't going to be there in overtime.
Yep.
And I think that's one of your big fundamental problems right now. Not that Milos Uzan is perfect, but you know that once Milos Uzan is not on the floor, if you're playing a half decent team right now, there's not the ability there to do it. There's not the ability to create. Like, you just completely look rudderless at times offensively. Like, you can get away with that against Hofstra, Ulala, that level of opponent.
Yep.
But right now, you desperately need somebody not named Milos Uzan to look more comfortable with the ball in their hands, to be able to bring the ball up and have the offense not look bad, which unfortunately, and that's kind of just a resigned feeling. Like once Sharp fouled out, that didn't make me feel any better at the time. But you knew once you didn't have Uzan in that overtime that it just wasn't going to happen for you. Like there's no way you can get this opponent.
Yeah, I think I've been, not to pat myself on the back, I'm going to here.
Go ahead.
I've said it all year, right? Who's the guy on this team? Who's the guy who ice water in his veins. There's a lot of guys that I trust to take a shot, but there's not one that I trust to take the shot. And we've been kind of looking for it. And Samson said today, maybe yesterday, we don't have that guy. He's still looking for that guy. Now, that doesn't mean that we won't find that guy, right? That guy won't emerge. It is December 1st, so you don't want to hit panic yet. But it's something that needs to happen. It's got to be somebody that you can just trust to bring the ball up the court, to your point, or that you can trust to just stand there and be a pop-up shooter and just drain it. When you need a bucket, who can attack the basket and get you the bucket? And we just don't have that guy yet. I think to your point, I don't always love calling players out by name, but if we do it with, quarterbacks and we do it with other stuff, we can do it with other players. Malik Wilson, the offense just stops when it revolves around him at times. I think if you look at Malik Wilson and you look at just his stats, you're like, they're not too bad. To your point, when Milo Suzan isn't on the court, Malik Wilson, the offense looks like it runs, and then suddenly he just like picks up his dribble. And I'm just going, what are we doing here? And then he passes it to Tugler, and Tugler kind of stands there like, I'm not supposed to have the ball. We're supposed to be running a pick and roll here, kind of deal. So I really want to see Malik Wilson develop as we go through the year and hopefully become that guy who's a little bit more comfortable with the ball in his hand. And then the other thing that concerned me in this tournament, not hitting the panic button on anything that happened and that I think this team is suddenly going to not make the tournament and it's all doom and gloom and all this kind of stuff. I need LJ Cryer to shoot the ball. That's my big takeaway is I need LJ Cryer to just put the ball up. There's no reason why LJ Cryer should have in the Notre Dame game, for instance, because that's the one I have pulled up. Granted, he didn't shoot the ball well, right? He went 2 of 11.
He was ice cold against Notre Dame.
Right? But here's the thing. There were many times, especially in that San Diego State game, where he got the ball and you could tell, buddy, it's designed for you to put this up here. And he just kind of faked a dribble and then put it up or passed it off to Emmanuel Sharp. And Emmanuel Sharp hit his bucket, but at the same time. So I don't know if it's a matter of confidence with Cryer. I mean, it's versus San Diego State, he goes 7 of 15, 5 of 13 from 3. So put up 21. I like that. I want to see LJ Cryer shoot. Shoot, man. And LJ Cryer is a shooter. If we want a 3-and-D guy, I want it to be LJ Cryer.
Yeah, I think sometimes there were some times over this week where Emmanuel Sharp seemed like he was the one taking over, or Emmanuel Sharp seemed like he was the guy more willing to, and which is good because Emmanuel Sharp still is going to be one of your frontline guys. He's one of your veteran guards, but that felt like he was at times, certainly in the stretch against Notre Dame, he was more willing to take on that scoring load, and he's been truly fantastic at the free throw line. LJ as well, which is good. Although it'd be better if you were a team that generally got to the line a bit more often than this Cougar team. I mean, you gotta call a spade in terms of what this team is this season. You're one of the worst teams in the country. You're bottom 20% or so in all of college basketball at making 2-point field goals.
Yeah,
like that's gotta get better. Like, and that,
yeah, you can have all the offensive rebounds that you want. You can have 17 offensive rebounds versus San Diego State, but if you shoot, 37%, it's tough.
Yeah, 39% of your 2-pointers made against Alabama, not great. Did a lot better than that against Notre Dame. Not coincidentally, the one game you shot well over 50% on. I got 31% on 2-pointers against San Diego State. Like that's awful. And San Diego State is a very, very good defense team. You coming in, even with like they hadn't had an amazing start to the season, although they're a very new roster. Like a lot of guys coming there from different programs. So not like you did this against a bad defensive opponent, but I don't care if they're the number 1 team in the country. 31% from inside the arc is terrible. Like 3 of 13 combined from Sharp and Uzan. Gotta do better than that. And I think this team can. And I think it's got to come from the guards. Like Roberts, I think you and I both kind of agree on this, that he isn't having the start to the year that necessarily you want. Although again, we're talking about less than 10 games at this point, and we're not panicking. Like, this is why you play these games in November. Like, there are a lot of teams right now that haven't even gotten one test as good as like the best 3 teams the U of H has played. So that's important here, and that's context. But
hey, we could be UConn.
Yeah, we could be UConn. Like, you could have gone 0 for the Maui Invitational, and like 2 of the 3 teams that beat you this year are going to be among the best in college basketball. Yes. That's why you play Bama and Auburn early in the season, is to really learn about yourself and learn the things that aren't going so well right now. But San Diego State, like there's no reason that you should have at multiple points held a double-digit lead against them and had that one go to overtime. Like, you gotta step on their neck, and that's the kind of that's where you see, I think, Jamal Shedd's absence, I think, the most, where you feel it most acutely, because I feel like a Jamal Shedd led team would have stepped on. I'm not saying you like for sure beat Auburn, for sure beat Bama, but you sure as hell don't lose that game to San Diego State if Jamal Shedd's there, and that's part of figuring out life after a generational guy in the program like Shedd. Like, you had to do that after Rob Gray left. You had to do that after, Galen Robinson and Corey Davis left. Like, you've had to do it before, and I think they'll be able to do it again under Kelvin Sampson. But I call the basketball. It is what it is. Yeah,
it takes time, and you're never gonna find that guy right away. I mean, you kind of knew it with Jamal Shedd that he was going to be the next guy up, but to your point, when Rob Gray leaves, you kind of wait, and suddenly Fabian White kind of takes over, and it takes time in the year for the team to mesh and gel. Even though you're returning 4 starters, your Arsenault's getting a lot more play. Tugler didn't play a ton last year. He gets hurt. So yeah, you're still trying to break in a bunch of guys here. And I still don't think this team is 100% healthy. I think Coach Sampson has mentioned Arsenault after every game. He's playing Arsenault at he goes, you tell me when your Achilles starts to hurt and I'll take you out, but until then I'm going to play you. So I think Arsenault's playing on 1.5 legs. I think Javier Francis is
still getting back to shape.
They've talked a lot about that. You kind of look at his line. You have Francis playing 20. I don't think in February Francis is going to be playing 20. If Francis is playing 20, we have some problems. 20 minutes with 2 fouls. Tugler's playing, if I see Javier Francis playing 20 minutes, it better say PF 4 or 5 over there. And then
you'll probably have a few of those in there. Just
yeah. Oh no doubt.
Yeah.
Tugler's playing 28 minutes. I don't think coming into this season you expect Tugler to be playing 28 minutes in that San Diego State game. You maybe want Javier playing 28 and Tugler to play 20. So yeah, I think it's just going to be a matter of getting everything meshed. There's no panic yet, but there are some concerns, if that makes sense, and some questions. I think questions is better than concerns. I think there are some questions that I think will get answered throughout the year, but there are things to just kind of watch with this team, and it's going to be that rotation and how much is Arsenault playing and things like that.
Fully agree. And I think this team can figure it out. If anything, Kelvin Sampson's resume at U of H is tell you that he will figure it out. But you could say in November, you're not playing your best basketball. But that, again, is why you also play the tougher teams, is to really learn something about yourself. And really learn something about yourself in your first month of life after Jamal Shedd, who was your biggest guy to replace after the season. I want to shout out also Terrence Arsenault had a really nice first half against Notre Dame. Really stepped up. Really looks like at times, he could be the guy out there for you. Maybe not the guy out there when LJ Cryer and Emmanuel Sharp are out there, but a guy who could take over games at times, which is not, he's not at full health. You mentioned him a moment ago, not at full health, but I've liked what I've seen from him. Has it been consistent yet? Not necessarily, but I don't think I expected that. And the highs I've seen from Terrence Arsenault, I've really liked.
Yeah, me too. Terrence Arsenault has looked really good this year.
Yeah. And it's not even him at full health yet either.
Yep. Is he going to suddenly, do I see him taking over for Cryer or Sharp or something like that? No, but he's going to play an important role for this team.
Fully agree. Also, I'm curious where what we see from the rotation in subsequent games, because any criticism I have of Kelvin Sampson, big grain of salt on that. Love Kelvin Sampson, and never has the phrase "has forgotten more about X sport than I know" been more true than with Kelvin Sampson, yours truly. but didn't like going 8 deep against San Diego State unless there's something I don't know.
Yeah.
That really, and I know you said Lott technically got in at one point. Malik Wilson played 6 minutes, but for all intents and purposes, you went 7 deep against San Diego State in a week where you played 3 games in less than 7 days. Didn't like that. And I know Mercy Miller didn't do great when he got those minutes late against Alabama. So you did worse for having to play Mercy Miller in that situation. I think if you think this guy is going to be that good for you at some point, even if he's not there right now, I know you want to have freshmen be a certain standard and all that stuff. And again, don't take this as any serious criticism of this coach. I think that was at least part of why you wore down there late. I didn't like going 7 deep and again in a compressed schedule against San Diego State. Maybe that's a torture test. Yeah. Maybe it's just you know what? I want my bench to see that you have to earn your minutes, and losing this November game of San Diego State potentially, that's maybe a consequence of it, and that in a bigger picture season, maybe that's fine. But just something I noticed.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you there.
All right, up next, the Cougars will be playing next Saturday at home in the friendly confines for the first time in a little bit in the Fertitta Center against the Butler Bulldogs, part of the Big East Big 12 matchup. Butler hasn't had a great start to the season. I mean, they're 6-1. We'll note that. Haven't played until they beat Mississippi State on Black Friday. I don't know if there was a great win in there. I mean, barely beating Northwestern and beating SMU by 11. Those are your best 2 wins before that. Not really that great. Losing to Austin P, a sub 200 Ken Palm team, not great.
Not great. So
not a really hard 6-1, but they're a good 3-point shooting team. They're a team that's going to test U of H's ability to do what you've done in some games, and more importantly, they're top 20 at preventing opponents from scoring. So, top 20 in 2-point field goal percentage, preventing opponents from scoring inside the arc, which you haven't been great at. Their overall defensive numbers aren't the greatest because of who they're going against, but they're still a team that's prevented teams from scoring inside. I like that at the Fertitta Center. I might start sweating a little bit if this was in Indianapolis at Butler. Think the Cougars should be fine against this opponent. Really interested to see the Cougar front court, Robertson Francis against Andre Screen. Legit 7-1, top 60 in both offensive and defensive rebound percentage. Colby King, a super veteran guard as well. So, interesting opponent. Thad Matta, very veteran head coach, longtime Ohio State head coach. That's a familiar sounding name to you. Hasn't necessarily got Butler off the ground yet, but they've been improved year on year in his 3rd year there. So interesting one, but one I expect the Cougs off of not their best week in Vegas, and with about a week to get back to practice, get back to health. I think that's going to be a Cougar win.
Yeah, I sure hope it is. You know what's going to be really interesting with Butler is how do the Cougs perform here is going to give us a pretty good outlook on what this team might look like, because have you looked at Butler's schedule after us?
I mean, I'm sure it's I maybe have their Ken Palm up right now. Oh yeah, I mean they go into the Big East schedule, so it's a lot of really good basketball teams.
They play North Dakota State, fine. Wisconsin, Marquette, UConn. That is 3 of their next 4.
You know what's funny? You did mention Nova, and rightly you didn't, because Villanova's not very good. How far they fall? Sorry.
Yeah, so 3 out of their next 4 against top 15 teams. If the Cougs come out and dominate this, and then they start to play them a little bit close, it makes you raise an eyebrow, right? If the Cougs can come out and look good. So not that, I know I should be looking at Butler, but how you look in this game, if you just kind of follow for the next month, is going to tell you a lot, to be honest.
Here's what scares me. It's my final thought about Butler. They have been very good at getting to the free throw line this year. And Bama was a team that's very good at getting the free throw line. The thought of having a bunch of guys in foul trouble when you're not sure at the rotation against an opponent who's proven they can get to the line and draw fouls gives me a little heartburn. Like that's in Houston, but that's definitely giving me heartburn. I think the Cougs should win it, but yeah, I think you'll get a good test there. I think Butler is certainly a better team than maybe we expected after the first week, and they lost to Austin P. Like that might be an outlier because you get a lot of outliers in the early part of the season. So, and it'll be an opponent that's going to be sky high confidence wise. They're going to have a lot of confidence. They're going to still feel like they're playing with house money because U of H is still going to have the team that has the number next to their name.
Yep.
So I think a good test for the Cougars. I had a chance to get things righted, a chance to see what a week off and back practicing and say, really looking at what went right, what went wrong in Vegas. I think that's going to be beneficial. But also, this isn't ooh la la. This isn't Hofstra. Like this is going to be an opponent that if you don't play better than you did in Vegas,
exactly,
don't expect a different result, or don't expect to be a result that you don't have to sweat out a fair amount.
100%. This is one of those teams that if you come out and you shoot 25%, you are going to get in trouble.
Yep. Speaking of shooting 25%,
no,
Houston Cougar women's basketball.
Do we have to, buddy?
We can put it out. We can genuinely, because we were almost an hour and a half into this, but we have to make a.
No, we skipped them last week. We got to talk them just a minute.
All right, let's keep it 10 minutes or less if we could.
Yeah, Cougar women's basketball, not great. Actually lost to the University of the Pacific last night. Was that last night?
Yes.
Yes.
I was looking at the live stat thing while I was being driven to the Denver airport.
So, you kind of think about the women's basketball. Sometimes a school is better in their school that you're like, oh, that's a name that I've heard of once, but oh, they're good at that sport. Pacific is not that team. This is a team that lost by 31 to Washington, lost by 5 to Northern Arizona, lost by 34 to Columbia, lost by 15 to Lamar, and they beat your Houston Cougars by 4. The Cougars, I think they've done it in every game. The Lady Cougars have put up a single digit in a quarter of scoring, which is just incredible. But not in a good, incredible way.
Derogatory incredible.
Not in a good kind of way. You look at the game before that, they lost to Minnesota by 17. They were only down 3 at the end of the first, scored 6 in the second quarter, down 13 at the end of the first half, put up 10, put up 15, lose by 17. It's just, what do you say, Sam? What do we say about this? This isn't good. There's nothing. I don't want to just like.
You're not competing.
Only be negative. I don't only want to be negative, but man,
nothing to be.
What is a positive to find?
Yeah,
in this,
there's
man?
Nothing to be positive about. I'm sure that good people.
I hate saying that, but it's just.
You can't score points against even the bad. Like, not beating the University of Pacific, rock bottom.
Yeah, I think I texted you that. I was like, I think it's. I can't think of something that is. I can't. You know what could take us there? Losing tomorrow night or Wednesday night. Losing tonight to the University of Texas Arlington.
Wednesday night
could be pretty bad too.
I mean, UTA should beat us. UTA is like a pretty good mid-major.
Not this year.
Oh, they're not?
They're 2-5 with wins versus Arlington Baptist and Texas A&M Commerce, now known as East Texas A&M. They did beat Arlington Baptist by 70 points. What a stat, bud. 105 to 35. That's awesome. What they shoot in that game.
Anyway, I just you're bad at scoring. This team did used to have a defensive prowess. You don't really have that anymore. You don't really have kind of press. Like, that's the identity. I mean, there's not.
And they don't even really press. If you watch the game, there's not a ton of press.
It's a situation where penny wise and pound foolish. UH is like, well, we just don't have the money to make a change here. And say, okay, but like most of the team is graduating and that team wasn't very good. Like, what do you expect this coach on expiring contract to be able to bring in player wise to remedy that situation? It's just, you're just like kind of just running out the clock on the season. You're running out the clock on a situation that probably should have ended 12 months ago.
Yep.
And that's kind of a bummer.
And it sucks. It sucks because, look, I'm going to the UTA game. If that doesn't tell you how much I love U of H and I love going to U of H women's basketball games, I don't know what else will. But I'm going because I hate myself, I guess. It's something to do on a Wednesday night. It's just not. I want to be so positive about every sport that we play. And it's just, it's hard to find a positive here.
Does this team win 7 games?
They're at 2 now.
Just gut. You don't have to look at the schedule. Just like gut reaction. Yeah, same.
No.
I was trying to think of a number
best,
that. Yeah.
At best, they win the next 3, which isn't.
No, not a given.
Which isn't a given. And then you got to go into Big 12 play.
And I don't think
Who are we beating in the Big 12?
I haven't gone through all 16 teams, but nothing about this season has convinced me
we lost
anybody.
to the U of P. We lost to Pacific.
Yeah. I don't think there's another team in this league that loses to the University of Pacific.
No.
Or gets just smoked by, like, North Texas is a solid team. Like, there are teams that North Texas could beat in the Big 12 this year.
Yes.
I don't think anyone else is getting smoked by North Texas like us.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's losing by 16.
No.
They may
no
lose
chance.
by 6, but not 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, but let's end this.
All right. Well, that is it this week. So, if you have some feedback for us, we love the feedback. You can find us on Blue Sky at podcast.bsky.social. We do still check the Twitter account. We check it for DMs, things like that. But we, as individuals, have kind of made our move over. I still am on Twitter a little bit. But we have kind of made the move.
Actually, you still reach out. We're still there.
Yep. If you want to reach out there, give us some feedback. We will definitely take it. You can tag us in post. We'll still see them occasionally. But and to be frank, I just want to give you guys a little bit behind the curtain. Not that we have decided, we're taking some moral stand or anything like that. Literally, our last podcast episode, they would not post it because we had links in it, and they dictated them as possibly dangerous. So we literally couldn't get content to you.
It just doesn't drive it. This is not like, it's a grand political statement. Nah, man, like, it's not new who owns this website, or that I have some high moral standard for who owns the various, like, websites.
It just doesn't do anything.
It doesn't do anything.
Us. Like, it actively harms us by not letting us post our content.
Yeah.
Like, that was the it took Sam, me, and Dustin. We all tried it until we finally got that feedback. So that is why we're doing it, but you can definitely find us on Blue Sky. We do still check the Twitter. Just wanted to peel back the onion, peel back the curtain a little bit so you could kind of see why. Twitter has come out and said that they are de-throttling links, so you might not even be seeing it. So we're just trying to make sure we can get you the content the best way as quickly as possible.
Using a social media website we hate like 20% less.
Yeah. We're not thrilled with it, right? But so that's where you can find us on Blue Sky. You can also find us on Twitter. And if you are somebody who swore off social media completely, we totally get that, and you still want to give us some feedback, you can find us at shpodcast@gmail.com. And also you can find us on Patreon. It is $5 a month minimum. If you want to give more, we will certainly take it. To run this podcast, $5 a month gets you some premium content. It also just helps and support us. I mean, you've probably heard on my instant react, and you've heard on my on this episode where my mic cuts out. Literally, we're going to take some of the money and get me a new mic this month. We use that money to help us run this podcast more than we do spending it in going on lavish vacations or anything like that. If you want to support the work that Sam and I do, we certainly appreciate that. You can find us at patreon.com/shpodcast. And Sam, what do we always say at the end?
Go Cougs.
All right. Go Cougs!